Okay, folks, you're live. Let's call the meeting of May 12th, 2021 of the Design Review Subcommittee to order. We have one set of minutes to approve this afternoon, and that is for the April 28th meeting. Do we have any comments or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Blackwell, second by Wu, and we'll do a head count. Commissioner Wu?
Aye.
Commissioner Blackwell?
Aye.
And Commissioner Crandall also votes aye, so it passes unanimously. We have two items on our agenda today, architectural review of the following items. The first is a minor cultural heritage permit 2083, 1815 Calle de los Alamos residence. And Chris Wright is the planner on this. Chris, you want to make your presentation?
Yes, just a minute. We're going to pull up a PowerPoint. Okay. Good afternoon, Chair, Subcommittee members. This is a request to allow an addition and exterior changes to a historic site at 1815 Calle de los Alamos. It's known as the Lindbaum residence. Next slide, please. So it's titled Lindbaum residence because the architect was Carl Lindbaum, a designer of one of 3 homes in the city, including Casa Pacifica and Casa Romanica. So that is one of the reasons why it's a historically significant structure on the city's list. Additionally, it's also significant because of the period of architecture as a contributor towards the Willie Hanson style design. Next slide, please. This slide shows a site plan. There's a couple things to note here. First, I have an arrow showing the historical entrance of the property, and that's facing Calle Primavera. And then these 2 shaded areas. If someone could put on mute, that's typing. Yeah, these 2 blue areas are proposed additions that I'll show a little bit more later. Next slide, please. So first thing to note with this project, a significant change is the landscaping. An effort was made by the applicant to improve the landscaping in such a way that it accented the entrance that I just noted and diminished some portions of the building that were altered. Today, with the Secretary of Interior standards in our architectural review process, they wouldn't be approved. And so the idea behind these changes is not only to beautify the site, but but it's to diminish the visibility or downplay parts of the building that should be less of a focal point. And this landscaping with the side yard and front yard combined would exceed the total area that the city would typically require in just the front yard setback with native plants consistent with city's design guidelines and goals. Next slide, please. Here's some of the photos of the plants that are proposed. Next slide, please. And I do want to highlight that that comprehensive landscape plan is one of the Mills Act contract improvements that's required. The project would complete all the Mills Act improvements that are required as part of the contract ahead of schedule. This slide, the green shaded areas show, and you're going to see this on other slides, the parts of the facade that are original. And there's not much of the facade of the original structure that's visible. And that is because a 2006 survey found that the condition of the structure is fair. That's mainly due to two projects that were completed when the city's architectural review standards put in place by Ole Hansen were not in effect. They were suspended for some time. And that includes on this slide shows a second story addition and first story addition and the balcony you could see on the far right, that it is not subservient, does not preserve the visibility of the original ridge line and form of the building, which is something that would be pushed for in our current process. So the project would make a number of changes to this building to improve the architectural integrity of the building. And like I said, to propose vertical landscaping to diminish this as a focal point, this second story addition. Next slide, please. This green area that shows the original facade. There was, in 1980, also this covered patio that was added to this facade of the building that it does hide in some respects the entrance, which is why an effort's being made with the landscaping to make it clear where the entrance is. Also on the bottom left, something to highlight between the original garage and the green shaded area on the first level, there was a garden wall added in the 60s. And then there's some trellis features, trellis members, and a door and window as part of that. That is also a part of the building that the city likely would not be able to support if proposed today, just because it diminishes the distinctive scale and relationship between the historic buildings. And we'll touch on that a little bit more later. Next slide, please. So this is part of the plans that were provided in your packet. The green shaded areas are consistent with what I've shown you. Those are the original facades. And then these light orange areas are changes that staff does not support in the project. A majority of the project staff does support. You find that a good amount of the changes that are proposed improve the architectural integrity of the building. There's also an effort being made to distinguish the original facade from the new areas that were added previously and any changes proposed now, with some slight variation in stucco. That is a common technique that's been used in the city. These orange features are noted in your packet. First, that garden wall I just talked about, there's a proposal to add roof tile to that wall and a keyhole door, which is on the Costa Romanica, a very distinct entrance. In Spanish colonial revival architecture, an entrance with that accenting is something that is encouraged for the main entrance to the building. Staff does not think that this is a good use of that type of design technique. If anything, staff recommends changing this part of the building to make it simpler, to remove the existing trellis, to remove the window and add a simple door to diminish the focus of this and restore some of those spatial relationships I mentioned. And then there's a chimney, if you could go to the next slide. There's a courtyard behind the main structure. And you could see on this slide the original facades facing the courtyard. The blue shaded areas are the proposed additions that are screened from the street. Next slide, please. And this just shows those green shaded areas related to the courtyard that are original. Next slide, please. This is the next slide showing the area of the chimney that's proposed that would extend above the original roof line of the structure. And that is a change staff's recommending to make that a first story scaled chimney so that it's not visible. It doesn't add additional accenting to the two-story element that staff today would not, and it's unlikely would meet the findings if that second story design were proposed today. Next slide, please. And then here are some of the materials that are proposed, typical high quality design materials proposed for this type of project. And that concludes my presentation. The architect and homeowners are available here on the call.
Great, thank you very much, Chris. Would the architect, Ian, would you like to make any comments before we fire questions at you?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, thank you all for hearing this project. And we've been going back and forth talking with Christopher about these design items, and it was a challenging one for him to get his hands around, us just being the fact that a big chunk of the previous edition completely obliterates and really didn't do a good job on the main portion of the structure. So we appreciate the attention to the landscape design that was done with Michael Bunganic, and trying to focus the entry and really highlight the fact that the front door is where it is, and we felt that we were doing that with the landscaping. I understand with the two items that Christopher, that staff is recommending that we revise or change. Both of those items are things that are fairly important to the clients, and we just wanted to get an opinion from you guys before we would, we want to get your opinion on these things. And I had a couple comments. One about the courtyard fireplace. Which Christopher requested that we design a fireplace chimney that stops partway up the wall, but that really, I think architecturally, it wouldn't work. I mean, I tried a couple ideas, and I can't imagine a fireplace with a chimney cap that just ends in the middle of a two-story wall. And we kind of feel like that the mass that's there is so large that just the addition of one more chimney towards the back corner in the courtyard is not that much of an impact. I understand the desire or the standards of not increase or expanding on things that are part of the historic structure, but the fireplace itself is a pretty key element as far as enjoyment of that courtyard area. And I don't see an architectural way that it would be practical to have a chimney that doesn't extend above the roof. So that's a comment about that. And then the other was the keyhole gate was something that we had discussed with Michael Bunganic, and he had talked with Pat Murphy, and they all liked the idea a lot. And we understood the idea of not wanting to have that appear as the entrance to the building, but we felt that the landscaping additions that were done and the design was with that, and toning down the keyhole gate entrance as a major element landscape wise seemed like it toned things down. So we wanted to get all your opinion on those two items mostly. The addition originally, when I thought of putting the tiles across the top of the garden wall that connects, is that it's a stucco wall with just a stucco top. And it just seemed like it not only needed protection from the elements, it just needed some detail across the top to make it feel like it worked. And then I was proposing to extend it down a little bit to sort of tie in with the porch that's attached to the rest of the front part of the building. So, I mean, those are elements we're looking for your input and guidance on that. But those are the couple things I wanted to talk about.
Oh, very good. Thank you, Ian. Would the applicant like to make any comment before we get started?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Rick Jones. I'm here with my wife, Leanne. I'd like to first comment, all of the changes or criticisms of the home that were initiated by Mr. Wright. I'd just like the record to reflect they weren't done by Mr. and Mrs. Jones. Those were things that were done in the 60s and 70s and 80s. We bought this home 3 years ago. And so what any problems that the city has with the home, those were things that were approved by prior homeowners well before we bought the property. It has been our goal. We lived 3 doors down from this home for many years. We raised our children at 1821 Calle de los Alamos. And this was a home that my wife had been in love with for over 20 years. And we met the owners, our children who were already grown and had finished college, and an opportunity came up to purchase the home. And so we bought this house with knowing that it was going to be a project, knowing that we would go through the Mills Act and that we would try to restore this home to its original beauty, even though some of the home, had been changed dramatically. We hired a wonderful architect, Ian, to help us. We've done everything. We've learned a lot also in the process. Originally, we had Jonathan Lightfoot as our kind of go-to guy on this project. And Jonathan educated me a lot on what the process would be and what we could and couldn't do and what we could expect. And one of the things that Jonathan repeatedly told me was, if we, the city, can't see it from the street, we're not going to be a problem. We're not going to fight you on things. So things in your courtyard, things in your backyard, things inside your house, the city doesn't care. We're not going to get involved with those types of things. I specifically drove back up pre-COVID to meet with Jonathan. And I said, hey, Jonathan, I want to have a beautiful fireplace in the center courtyard. And in light of the fact that you told me that you won't be concerned with things that you can't see from the street, I want to be on the level with you. You'll be able to see the chimney top. That'll be the only part of this fireplace that I want. But you will be able to see a chimney top from the street, depending on where you are in the street. And he said, that's not the kind of thing that we're going to look at. That's not going to be the kind of thing that we're going to stop. That's not something that I'm concerned about at all. And so in light of that information and in light of those promises, I asked Ian to draw the beautiful courtyard with that fireplace for the future. And so we're very frustrated that a chimney cap that can be seen by the street is the subject to this debate today, when we can make that chimney top however you guys want it. We can make it to match the one that's already there, have it match one of an Ole Hansen house that you guys pick. We don't care. We just want a fireplace, a beautiful fireplace that has a chimney that goes above that second story, because Ian's telling us that he can't design it where it goes only halfway. And so that's my first concern would be this, that this maybe 3 or 4 feet of a chimney that you could see from the street, depending on where you are on Primavera, that shouldn't be something that gets stopped in this process, particularly in light of my understanding and my conversations with Jonathan Lightfoot pre-COVID. Next, I'd like to move to the keyhole. Mr. Wright was accurate when he told you in the very beginning that this project is known as the Lindbaum residence. That was my paying homage to Carl Lindbaum. When I applied for the Mills Act, I could have had my ego in it and said Jones residence. And I didn't do that. And I didn't do that because, first of all, I don't have a big ego. But secondly, I wanted Mr. Lindbaum, who only built 3 houses in all of San Clemente, the 2 finest houses that our city has, Casa Romanica and Casa Pacifica. I wanted to tribute him by, since this is the only other one, to call this project the Lindbaum Project. And one of the most beautiful things that he did was this keyhole entry at Casa Romanica. And so no one is critical of the keyhole from the city that I understand, other than this issue that it might give a false sense of direction that someone might think that that's the front door. And I just want to let you know, if you look at this house, the way it's laid out, and you look at Ian's plans, and you look at this proposed keyhole, it's bunk. There's no way anyone would ever believe that that keyhole is our front door. It's a beautiful tribute to Mr. Lindbaum and his design at Casa Romanica, and it enters into the courtyard in the back that will lead to a beautiful fountain and a swimming pool and things like that. And so, you know, we really, I'm pressing, and I'm pretty much, you know, begging that I get that keyhole. No one has said that you can't have a keyhole, or that the keyhole, we can't copy Casa Romanica. If anything, we should be able to, since it's the same architect. And if we can do some more things with plants, or if I have to eliminate the walkway so that there is this confusion that Mr. Wright claims that exists over the keyhole, I'll do whatever it takes. But the keyhole, in my opinion, there's just, it's clearly a side entrance to the backyard, and it's not a front door. And the appointments and things that we've done to further make the front door clearly the front door, I think will far outreach anyone's confusion that the keyhole might possibly be a front door. I don't think that exists. And I think we can, with landscaping and with, like I said, if we had to, I don't really want to eliminate the walkway to it. You know, we'll do what it takes, but I think the concern that the city has, or Mr. Wright has, is that someone might confuse that as the front door. Well, then let's get in the solution, and let's do what we got to do to make it not look like the front door. Let's keep the keyhole, but let's do what we got to do to eliminate any confusion that this is a front door versus a side yard gate entry. And then with respect to the tiles that Ian proposed, get rid of them. You know, I'm quid pro quo. I'm willing to, you know, if you guys are so upset that there's some proposed tiles over this area that wasn't original, I'm willing to concede on that. Let's get rid of those. But I'd really ask that you reconsider on both the chimney, 4 feet of a chimney, and the keyhole entry to my backyard, and clearly not my front door. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Blackwell, do you have any questions for the applicant and the architect?
Yes, Bart, I do. I'm sorry, I was on mute. Good to see you. That was just going to be your voice today.
Yeah, I'm trying to make the phone do all the work here.
We made it. We were starting to panic. Small beads of sweat were starting to form.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, oh gosh, what are we going to do now? Okay, thank you. I have a question for Chris. Right? Did we receive an opinion from any historic preservation interests on this property?
We just, as part of the HVPA application.
Okay, so nobody else has commented from that side of the house at all? Okay.
Yeah, I do at some point wish to respond to one of the comments that Mr. Jones made.
That'll be fine. We'll do that during discussion, and we'll invite you in also, Chris.
Okay. And I have another question for Chris regarding the chimney, the new fireplace and chimney top. It's been a minute since I've looked at code requirements for risers and suppression on a chimney, but is it possible that there may be a restriction to terminate a vent mid structure, if you will? I mean, doesn't there have to be a rise above the top of the structure, the uppermost part of a structure?
I can address that for you, Michael.
Okay.
They're now required, we can't have wood burning fireplaces, basically. That's a done deal. So it's going to be a gas fireplace, and it's called a gas appliance. And it can actually come up and vent out through the wall, or just be a Class B vent going up through the roof.
Oh, okay. Okay. So there's no
Somewhere
restriction on
either.
that. So we could terminate it anywhere.
Yes, that
Okay.
can be done.
Okay, great. And another question for Chris, possibly the applicant. The niches that are going to be filled in, do we have any historic data on that? Any history on what those were? It wasn't uncommon to see tile mosaics in those areas. If the report discusses what those niches were used for previously, then I apologize. I did miss that part.
Yeah, I can comment on that. Yeah, there was an attachment to your report where the architect did some exploratory demolition at staff's request to investigate that. And when they did the second story addition, they actually built a wall in front of the original building. And so those little inset areas were not part of the original. It wasn't intended to be a tile mosaic. It's actually the original surface of the structure. And so staff's position is, while those areas are original, maintaining it just doesn't seem like anything of great value to preserving the historical integrity. If anything, staff would be supportive of filling them in, because we think that it detracts from the quality of the architecture.
Okay, that's fair enough. Thank you. And in the landscape plan, we show some olives. There's 5 of them, and there's also a couple of the strawberry trees that are kind of flanking the entry to the the improved entry. Those are multi-trunks? Are those standard trunk strawberry trees?
I don't know the answer to that question. I could look at the plans if you.
I couldn't tell
is there,
in the landscape plan.
I could look at the full scale. If you want, I could look at the full scale plans, and maybe I can answer that question a little bit later.
Yeah, that'd be really helpful. Thank you, because that ties into another part of the discussion, the presentation on what is the primary entry and what is not. Okay, so if you could look into that. And okay, and then Chris, the keyhole opening is characteristic of a prominent design detail at the Casa Romanica, also designed by the same architect. What's your feeling about that is known for repeated? Is that such a bad thing? Does that have any issue with this reoccurring in a different location, or feel it should remain the original place?
Your audio is cutting out a little.
Concern here.
Your audio is cutting out a little bit, but I think I understand your question. So please correct me if I'm wrong here. But what I'm hearing you say is you're asking about the nature of this design detail being used in other parts of the city, and why staff would be concerned about using it here with that context. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, a big reason is it's not any critique of the actual detail. It's a beautiful detail. I mean, it's one of those doors that's iconic to San Clemente, and that's part of our concern. It's not so much the detail itself, but the application. This is not an original part of the building. So staff is of the opinion that this part of the building should be downplayed, just like the effort being put into plants that are making the second story less of a focal point. Staff is not supportive of adding additional accenting to that part of the building. And also, it's pretty characteristic in San Clemente design and Spanish colonial design to have the most interesting door at the main entrance.
Okay, that's good. Okay, I think that would be all of my questions at this point. Thank you.
Very good. Commissioner Wu?
Yes, Chair. Chris, I have a few questions at this moment. First, can you confirm that the paint or the projected window trim, window surround, along with the tiles are not historic?
That's correct.
On the site plan, the sidewalk stopped at the corner and it doesn't continue on Calle Primavera. Does the project get a waiver for the sidewalk?
No, the project will be subject to, unless the applicant wants to pursue that, but the applicant has been working as if the project would have to comply with the engineering sidewalk standard.
Okay. A question to the applicant: when when you designed the replacement staircase, did you work with any architecture historian, any people who are more experienced on historical preservation to come up with this design?
This design was inspired by the what was the mortuary down at north end of south of El Camino Real, and then more recently San Clemente Art Supply. So that's a historic structure, historic Orley Hanson, a very classic building in town, and it was inspired by those stairs.
Okay, that's all my question for now. Thank you.
Can I make one comment about the sidewalk?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, the idea behind the side, if you look towards along Calle Primavera, at the far end of the garage, the sidewalk narrows and there's an existing power pole in the middle of the sidewalk. And there's no way to go beyond that point. And the next property, I think there are only two more houses on that. It's kind of an island between the streets. And there are only two more houses beyond that. And there's no sidewalk on the next property. And there's a power pole at the end of this property that squeezes so tightly that there practically is no way for anybody to do anything beyond getting to the driveway of this property. So we felt it was more valuable to add the landscaping along that edge. And since there's going to be an ADA accessible corner ramp into the street, then people can exit the sidewalk at that point and continue their path either across the street, or there's nothing else to go to up the street on that side. So I just wanted to make a comment about the sidewalk.
Thank you for clarification.
Okay, very good. Christopher and Stephanie, I want you to jump in if I misspeak here. We've got a couple of things we're doing on this project. And one is thank you very much for completing the Mills Act items ahead of schedule. That is extremely appreciated. The purpose of the Mills Act is to help maintain and even bring back properties to their original appearance. So as far as those items, we're doing that. So we're following the Mills Act to that point. Now we're doing additions, additional details that are making the building something wasn't originally, trying to be more decorative than it was originally designed. I appreciate that. And we have certainly approved remodels that are at the rear of the building or in a courtyard that are not to the public view, to make them more livable and enhance the use of the property. So if we look at just the items currently in the public view, I think landscaping is looking good. My question for Ian is, I feel we're making certainly this house a little more detailed than what it was originally. And I'm torn on a couple of things. For historic preservation, yeah, we can do those things. But for the Mills Act and for it to continue, because it isn't just a 10-year contract, it is ongoing. Every year, a year is added on to the end of it for tax savings. And I'm curious, Stephanie and Chris, if we would be violating the intent of the Mills Act by enhancing the building beyond what its original look was and allowing the Mills Act to either continue or still save the tax savings. I just want to make sure in my mind that we are approaching this the right way. So Chris and Stephanie, you want to address that?
Yes,
Okay.
I can comment on that. Yeah, so I did check the Mills Act file that the Jones had pursued. And there, even at that time, there was intent to pursue changes to the site. And the company that was used, our consultant to go out there, historical preservation expert, noted that in the file. It is okay to make changes to a historic structure, but there's emphasis on reviewing them consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards. So any work that's being done should even further the goals of the Mills Act. While admittedly, they're adding some details. Like you noted, staff is appreciative, and I've commented on this several times, that the Mills Act improvements are being made all ahead of schedule. Staff overall feels like the changes are improving the architectural and historical integrity from the standpoint of maybe not the original architect and design, but a big reason why it is historically significant is the period of architecture. And we see a number of things on this building that are inconsistent with that style of design. But I have to tell you, it was, like Ian mentioned, it was quite an exercise to try to figure out what is original and not. And a good amount of the time getting to this point has been working with Ian to clearly communicate for the subcommittee what is original, the illustrations in the packet.
Okay, Stephanie, would you concur with that approach?
You're on mute, Stephanie.
Thank you for that. I have nothing else further to add. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Okay, and did we receive any public comment whatsoever, Chris, on this project?
No, sir.
Okay, so we will close the presentation portion, open the public comment. There are none at this point in time. So we will open it up to discussion between the commissioners. Sometimes we have to realize that a historic structure is not in its pristine form when we get the project, and I appreciate that, and I understand the applicant's intensity on wanting the keyhole detail, and I agree it is a detail that has been used, and it's been used very nicely on the Ollie Hansen project, and obviously by this architect. I don't feel that's where the architect would have used it, going into and through a garden wall. So I'm a little wishy-washy on that, so I'll hold a decision until we end our discussions here. Commissioner, let's go to Commissioner Wu first, before Blackwell.
Thank you, Chair Crandall. We have 3 architecture sheets, A 3.1 through A 3.3. with all the elevations. So I'll just go by elevation, if you don't mind.
No, let
So-
me get mine open to those pages. Okay.
Hey, Stephanie,
So-
would you mind pulling up the, I'm sorry to interrupt, would you mind pulling up the PowerPoint so everybody can see?
Certainly, I could do
Plan.
that.
So start from sheet A 3.1 with the west elevation and the north.
And Stephanie, some of the plan sheets I have as hidden slides, so if we wanted to see all the plans are at the bottom.
Okay.
What sheet did you want to see?
And this is the one.
Okay, great.
So the west elevation, the new elevation covers the only two small wall area of the historical structure. However, I still believe this is consistent with the Secretary Interior standards of historical preservation, since the remaining recess are not a distinctive feature. The rest of the elevation is an improvement over existing. So overall, I like this elevation, the west elevation. Then go down to the north elevation. First, I like to point out the existing, the as-built north elevation. The windows seem to be misplaced. They are actually lower than what's depicted here. The window sill is about at halfway of the door. So on the drawing, they're raised, but it doesn't change because since the applicant is not proposing to do much to these windows except for replacing the existing window or no, maintain the existing windows. So it's just a minor omission on the existing drawing. Regarding the proposed design, so the new garage door will be a toot-up one-piece wood garage door, is that right?
Yes, it's Ian King. If he could comment on that, appreciate it.
You asked if the garage door would be a one-piece wood garage?
Is it a sectional or one piece?
Well, we're proposing a sectional. I don't think building-wise, and the driveway is very short. I can't imagine that we would be okay with doing a solid slab garage door that folds, that hinges up. So the intent was to do a wood sectional garage door.
Chris, do we have any record showing this garage door, whether it's one piece or carriage door? What was the original design? Do we have any record?
I do not have an original record, but sectional doors are a newer type of product that likely weren't available years ago.
For the lighting fixtures, they look different from the existing lighting fixture, and they look different from the proposed material sheet lighting fixture. And they are throughout the elevations. I want to make sure those lighting fixtures are historically correct for the period of the development. Ian, do you have any comments on that?
Ian, you're on mute.
All right, on attachment 8, the photo of the wrought iron fixture is something that we felt was historic, correct with the historic period.
Yeah, I just want
Handmade.
to point out that they're different from your elevation. The lighting fixtures on all the elevations.
Well, that we didn't take the time to actually model a 3D fixture that was exactly like that one. It's a sconce that was meant to be representative, I guess. But the photograph is what is proposed to be installed.
Okay, good, thank you. So my comment on the redesign of the existing non-historic garden wall. is that it uses a copy of Casa Romanica entrance. It tries to replicate a historic precedent out of the original context, and I wouldn't recommend it. I'd agree with the staff that this distracts people's attention away from the structure. So if we go to Chair, do you want us to comment on page by page, or you want me to go through everything?
We can go page. Highlight the major issues that you have, and then we can go page by page at the end and flip through it and codify pretty much everything so Ian knows what to do.
Okay, well, there isn't a much, so let me just go through everything. And then on page 3.2, the attribute east elevation on the upper level at the right-hand corner, there's a window, existing window that's missing. Then on south elevation, the proposed elevation, the removal of the triangular, looks like there's a brace inside. The removal of that is an improvement over the existing. However, the wrought iron railing is not seen from original structure. Since we have this original structure in the backside, this little two-story structure, and there's a balcony there. So wrought iron is a little bit foreign to the overall structure. I think wood would be preferred. Then on the new exterior staircase, I leave it to the next page. That's 3.3. The staircase again is a copycat of the other historic building on El Camino Real. So if you look at the other side, the balcony, people can walk out of the room, look out. In traditional Spanish colonial architecture, those features are called mirador, meaning a balcony or lookout place. This replicate of a stucco stair changes the feature or the intent of that landing or balcony. I just don't think it's very heavy and is not consistent with the rest of our architecture. So although that staircase by itself was a brilliant example of historic Spanish colonial architecture in town, I do not believe this is appropriate at this place with this building. So for this staircase, I do recommend the applicant to work with a architectural historian to do a little more research and come up with some idea that's more appropriate. On the chimney, this house is located at a corner, and because of the curve of the street, it's almost at a promontory point. It can be seen from both directions. In both direction of the curved street, Calle de los Alamos and Calle Primavera. I'm talking about the chimney, especially. So I'd agree with the previous staff planner that if it's not visible from the public, from the street, then you'll be okay. You can do a lot what you want. But this chimney, the top portion of the chimney is visible. Also, the new exterior stair is visible from the street. So the more strict adherence to the historical preservation standards should apply. Now, if you want to open flame fireplace, that you may need a chimney, but a lot of time people just use direct vent. In that case, you don't need a chimney. you can just vent it anywhere in the middle of the wall. So lower, my recommendation is that you either have a standalone fireplace in the courtyard, you lower it, the chimney should not encroach into the silhouette of the existing structure, and not to distract people's attention. And that's my comment. That's pretty much my comments on this design. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Blackwell.
Yes, thank you. Well, if I may, for the record, just mirror the comment that Commissioner Wu said about the exterior stairs. I think there's more work to be done on that. So I'd like to see that revisited by the architect. My comments on the chimney, I was a little torn on the addition of the new chimney element on the building. To Commissioner Wu's point, the added element, I do believe, detracts from the original architecture. It's an extra set of lines that, depending on the perspective, granted it is at the rear, not as visible as other portions of the architecture. Still, in elevation views, we can see it, and the detraction that it incorporates into the design scenario here. I have to say that I'd like to see a different position on the chimney. I can appreciate the purpose of it. I think it's a great thing if you could fit an outdoor fireplace into a courtyard. There's nothing better than relaxing outdoors and having that. The challenge is, do it in a way that complements the architecture that demands a complement in this situation. This is not new construction. So what do we do? My thought was consistent with Commissioner Wu about a repositioning and lowering that stack, a little more intimate feel, maybe perpendicular to the current position and detached from the original building. If it absolutely has no other place to go and there's demonstration of no available space, maybe we look at fine-tuning the design, maybe minimizing it so it's a little more flush to the building, and at the top meets the scale of the existing chimney top at least, and design, so the lines are consistent. But I'd really like to see the location of that fireplace revisited in a demonstration showing that there is no other viable location without deprivation of enjoyment to the owner. I think that's important here. The other question I had is the wooden door, and I'm glad Commissioner Wu brought that up, because garage doors are often overlooked and are very important because it's such a large plane. It does compromise a large part of the architecture. And I would like to see more information on what's proposed there. I read it as my interpretation was a repainting of the existing. If that's the case, the darker brown, definitely prefer that over the current white color. If a new door is being added, there's so many choices. I think that'd be a very important piece of information, to be considered as it relates to the overall design scheme at the property. The keyhole entry, I think it's, though I appreciate the applicant's respect to the original architect, I think that's fantastic. I share Commissioner Wu's position on the replication of a key architectural element. It is special to the casa, but I have no reservations on introducing some elements that are a nod to some very special elements. I think it's at this point a little much, and I'll tie that part of my comment back to staff's presentation and position on it as well. I think it could still work, and there could still be some acknowledgement of that architectural detail, but just minimized. Maybe we take the tile roof, the tile cap off. Maybe we remove the wooden paneling on the sides. make it smaller. Maybe it's just you know, a hand done stucco plane with an opening, but with the, you know, the cutout recessed element of the keyhole, but smaller. Maybe that could be a solution, kind of a halfway point. Other than that, I like the landscape design. I think that the choice to flank the entry to the keyhole side entrance with olives, multi-trunk olives, versus the flanking multi-trunk, assuming multi-trunk, unless Chris has other information to add. I know, Chris, you're going to look into the plans a little closer. I'm assuming these are going to be multi-trunk strawberry trees at the main entry to the front door. So with that assumption, at full maturity, I think it could be sort of a conflict to the eye, especially at night, and if they're going to be uplit. The olives in an ideal environment would probably be more visible to somebody looking at the building than the olives. It really depends on how they grow and how healthy they are. Both very beautiful, especially if uplit at night. But I would lean towards the olives. If they're going to be a true Swan Hill, an older tree, I think that would be more consistent with the primary entry to see those. I prefer to see that, and put the smaller multi-trunk strawberry trees at the rear, to swap them out. I prefer to see that. But again, it's really going to depend on how they're treated, how they're uplit, especially at night. You know, all those things factor in. Other than that, that's those are the only comments I have at this point, Bart.
Okay. I'm going to take a different direction on this and use the photographs where they've put the green shading over the existing building. And so looking at the rear of the garage, I have no problem with their changes whatsoever, putting in the outdoor kitchen. That's kind of a very removable item at some point in time, if ever they want to go back to historic. But for the picture that shows the rear of the garage, I'm totally comfortable with those changes. On the front, where I understand what they tried to do with those recesses on the front elevation, trying to show the historic walls, but filling those in, I think, is a great improvement to the elevation. Changing the corbels and beams on that picture. I wish I was on my computer here so I could. These aren't numbered, so I can't refer to which picture it is, but I'm very comfortable with that. And replacing the windows with a Romeo Juliet balcony on that elevation. Not necessarily, but I think it's a very acceptable change on the non-historic part of the building. And that was going, I think, with some French doors, etc. Looking at, which is the next one. This is on the back of one of these. Looking at the courtyard, I appreciate very much the fact that you know, we're being extremely critical of what has been done in the past. Here it is. There's a picture of the courtyard that has the existing building, etc. And looking at the stairway and the supports, I'm not opposed to the stairway that is proposed. For the main reason is they have all the right in the world to leave what's there. And I think it is a huge improvement over that. I don't believe that is visible from the public right of way. It's a private interior space, and I'm comfortable that is a very commonly used stairway design with the arch under it. Ian stated two particular buildings in town that used it, but it's used all over in Spanish colonial revival. So I'm comfortable with that. The fireplace, I'm pretty neutral on. I think with the direction of the ridge, you're not going to see it coming down towards the ocean driving west, or it's probably south for all that matter. Maybe you could catch a glimpse of it coming around the other way. But I'm more concerned about the long elevation of the building and that wall between the garage and the house. We're tasked with making sure that changes to historic properties aren't embellishments to a home, but bring it more in character with what it is supposed to be and what it was designed to be. So I think that wall and all could be revisited. That's between the garage and the house and that opening to be more in keeping with what the original architect intended. And I would welcome any comment from Commissioner Wu or Commissioner Blackwell on any of those comments, and I'm not steadfast in any of them, but those are the ways I'm leaning at the current time. So Commissioner Wu, on what I just discussed.
Yeah, but I don't have much. I understand your opinion. I do want to point out that the staircase, the top landing, is visible from the street in between this home and the neighboring property, and the chimney is visible from the streets from three directions because of the unique location of this.
I'm gonna, let's make this a discussion. I would agree with you that it is visible, but I actually think it makes that darn second story addition a little more palatable, that it actually improves that second story addition to some degree. And I'm just, that's why I'm not opposed to it. But because it's just a stark box right now on top of it.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. You know, I still need to stay positioned on the stair design, but it's just the top part that I think is going to be the thing, because just it adds massing. So part of our job is to protect the historic structures and the original intent and all that, and that's the tricky part for a developer or an applicant, that when they're trying to expand it to their needs and still maintain the intent, especially a Mills Act participant. It's kind of, you just got to be careful when we start to look at all the things that are being added that do add massing. I personally love the design. I like the arch. Generally speaking, I like that type. I've seen it even up in Talega. There are a couple models of homes that are every 3 or 4 houses they have that element in the front with that stair and the arch over the front door, and it really is attractive. But those are different. Those are different scenarios. This is a special property, and I can't disagree with the improvement over what's there, but I have to acknowledge that there's going to be some massing added at the top. So how do you deal with that? Well, maybe at the top where those 12 cutouts are, that's also a classic element we've seen before. That the cutout and the stucco. But maybe there is a compromise there. Maybe at the top of the stairs, there's the removal of that stucco portion and the rail is returned, or some see-through rail element. That would be a way to minimize, still maintain, the detail that's there now, at least part of it. It keeps the massing reduced, but still allows the applicant to make the improvement in other areas of that stairwell. Yeah, I think, and with the chimney element as well, as I mentioned, I'm with you, Bart. I hear you. It's not going to be a huge, detraction. The main plane is certainly not in that courtyard, but it is a piece that's going to be visible. So all I would suggest is if there's nowhere else to put the outdoor fireplace, because the purpose of that firebox is to serve the courtyard. It's not serving the house. It's not being used from the interior. So if there's a way to place it in the courtyard, maybe perpendicular placement with a shorter stack, you could still achieve, a usable element there that, or an architectural element there. It won't be attached to the house, won't detract in any way. The question remains, in the future, should this be restored to original, you wouldn't have that issue. That could simply be, removed from the property. It's not attached. But if it has to be attached, there's nowhere else to put it. I don't want to deprive the homeowner from enjoying that space the way they would like to. And there's no other location for a firebox. And it has to be in that location just to minimize the chimney stack, so it matches the scale of the existing chimney to some degree. I mean, clearly it'd be a revisit if there's a change to the design. Maybe it comes back to us, but it just be designed in such a way that it complements. It doesn't draw your attention away from. I think that's what we're trying to get at.
Okay. So what I hear on the stairs and the fireplace chimney is both Commissioner Wu and Commissioner Blackwell are concerned about the massing. The roof stays, I believe, on the stairs no matter what, and that's pretty much what's visible. I have a different opinion, but we've got two indicating that those are of concerns. Let's talk about that front elevation again and that wall between the house and garage. I want to make sure that the applicant realizes we're trying to work with you here to satisfy all parties, because I'm sure the Historic Society is also watching this meeting, and we have some obligations to listen to the public as well on this, although no comments were made. So we're working with you to resolve these concerns. Do you have any more comments, Commissioner Wu? Oh, Commissioner Wright, go right ahead. Commissioner Wright, Planner Wright.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I wanted to comment on the stairway. One reason why the stairway was not of concern to staff is the orientation of the stucco mass. So given that it's perpendicular to the street, staff wasn't concerned about that mass being that visible or playing an outsized impact on the view of the building from the street. For the chimney, staff is of the position that there are other options for the chimney, and it's not a must to have the chimney there. I am sensitive to the fact that it's set back, and but yeah, that was something that staff did weigh. I do want to point out there was a comment made by Mr. Jones. I'm sensitive to how you work with Jonathan, and I took over the project, and I wasn't part of any of those discussions. I can just say that when I took over the application, I went through all Jonathan's notes, and actually one of the items in his letter is the stairway, is the chimney. It says, some of the proposed new elements are appropriate for Spanish colonial revival style and are attractive. However, I have some concern that the new elements are becoming the focal points of the architecture. Mentions the chimney. So that was a comment that I had. Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm pretty much in concurrence with you on the stairway also, but let's see.
Chris?
I want to make sure we get something concrete for Ian and the applicant to work with here. Does anybody have any comment on the Romeo Juliet balcony going in? Either Commissioner Wu or Blackwell?
Which elevation you're referring
I
to?
do.
That is the, what do we call that thing? You remember, Chris, which elevation it's called?
Are we talking about the elevation? The
Yeah.
elevation from the street?
Yeah.
That is the north elevation.
I'm fine with them.
Yeah, I am also fine with it because it's on a non-historic section of the building, etc. That's kind of the same feeling I had with the chimney that, yeah, it's a change, but it's not really impacting it, but I've had my say.
I have a question. Thanks for bringing that up. Can we bring up a slide that shows the design of that Romeo and Juliet balcony?
I don't believe there's one actually shown. It was called out to put in French doors and a Romeo and Juliet balcony.
Well,
The
you know what?
The next slide shows the balcony.
I don't know if I've got that in my packet. Okay.
Is there a design
I'm
detail on the
sorry.
balcony?
Two more slides down.
Yeah, I want to add it to my comment that I do prefer the balcony to have a water railing, similar to the existing structure on the upper level of the rear two-story structure.
So there are no rafter tails. There's nothing underneath. It's just going to stick out the way it's shown in the elevation.
Let's go invite Ian in to comment on this. Is it even a balcony that you're intending for people to step on, or is it strictly the look you're looking for and the doors will open in?
It is intended. It's got four small doors basically, but yeah, it's intended to be able to step out. It's a beautiful view from there. It's not, obviously there's no chairs and you're not going to hang out there, but it is intended that you can go out and step on it. It's the intent was to be a wrought iron Juliet balcony that is a very light element. The whole, not wood structure, not wood corbelled beams below or anything.
Okay, and we are talking the courtyard west elevation one?
Are you talking about the courtyard, or are you talking about the one on
the front?
Los Alamos?
I mean, are they going to be the same?
Yes, both of those would be the same.
Okay. I can live with that. How about Commissioner Blackwell and Will?
Yeah, I think it's a nice idea. So is it about 3 feet, did you say? 3 feet? The projection will be about 3 feet?
I can check. Let me see if I can. It's less than 3 feet, actually. The landing below, I think, is 3 feet. So let me see.
Okay, and it's wrought iron. The railing is all decorative wrought iron?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's a tough one because we don't, we often will see, up close details of the design of the wrought iron. We don't have that here. Just based on the elevations, it looks to be consistent with other elements on the structure, which I think would be key to make sure that, there's some continuity in that element. It's wrought iron. It's only, a couple feet projecting. That's pretty minimal.
Okay, so I guess we're
yeah, I don't see an issue on that one. Thank you
Okay.
for the clarification. Yeah.
both Michael and Commissioner Wu don't want to hold this project up, but I think we can agree on everything that's proposed, except for we have varying opinions on the chimney. I think we're two to one on lowering that one. The stairway, I haven't been swung to say, no, it's not appropriate. So, but I think we're 2 to 1 on that. Is there any other issues that you see that we need to give them direction on? Oh, the wall between the house and garage and the keyhole door. I think a really nice wood gate kind of treatment would be very appropriate. And the architect had in mind for this house.
Well, I would say that the stairway, maybe not 2 to 1, because I am more with you on the rest of the stairway design. It was just the the top part, keeping it a little more open.
Oh, very interesting. That's actually a very good comment. Ian, with that stair design, could you open up the landing a little bit with some railing to lighten it up some?
Yeah, I was looking at that. If the mass ended at the post for the roof,
Have a pilaster kind of shape or something.
have a little detail up there, and then the rest of it could be an open rail.
Maybe you could repeat sort of the detail that's to be on the new balcony, the Romeo and Juliet balcony. Maybe get some of that element in there.
Okay.
Yeah, instead of those little square boxes, you'd be opening it up to a railing, and I think that would certainly reduce the mass
Yeah.
and
Sure.
keep the character and the style. So I think that would be a good approach. Okay.
The
Chris?
chimney.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the chimney. Bart, what do you, if you can really just throw one out there, what do you think about, if there's no other location for the firebox to be, that's really the point of it. Oh, I think the intent
it's
is
actually also to house his big screen TV. So when they're using the patio, that TV's behind some shuttered openings, using a shuttered opening. And I understand that's kind of the focal point that he's going to focus his furniture to. And that's why I was thinking, it's not bad looking, but yes, it is different than the firebox we're putting in is adjacent to existing building, but the chimney itself is on the old addition. So I kind of justified it in my mind that the overall appearance was pretty decent and a decent solution, rather than being a purist saying, because by no means this is our most pure historic house in the city. It's been massaged quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, I would just say if that's the best location and only location for that part of the use, which is the television and firebox, needs to be there. The part I don't struggle with that. It's an interior space. It's just the upper portion of the chimney that I'm struggling with. It's one of those details. We see once it's built, you drive by it, you go, okay, that turned out okay. After all, I was worried, or that's horrible. And I'm not sure on this one if it's going to be horrible or not, only because of the scale of it. It doesn't have to be that high. And because it doesn't have to be that high anymore, what would it look like if it just wasn't there at all? Is it really an improvement to the building having that stick up above the roof line? I'm struggling with that part.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I totally understand that. Chris and Ian. It looks like we have to that the keyhole opening and the chimney, and a minor revision to the stair just to open it up a little bit. Is there a way to keep this project moving with those outstanding items?
I'm of the opinion that if the subcommittee gives clear guidance on the sort of changes that are supported, then staff could work with the applicant team. Right now, I'm not all that clear on the chimney, and I would like a little bit more clarification on the garden wall.
Okay, very good. Let's try to do that for you then.
Can I make a comment about the chimney while we're on that one?
Certainly.
Are you, well, because you mentioned I didn't know if you wanted me to chime in or not, but I'm just
I wanna
wondering.
resolve the issue.
Yeah, wondering if its scale was reduced, more of a symmetrical. The other chimney kind of same size, and because it doesn't necessarily need to have a chimney stack. Not going to be wood burning. You see how the other little pop out for the existing master bath, which that kind of goes up and underneath the roof. If there was some sort of element that came up and went up to the underside of the eave and we could tie that in somehow. Is it the fact that it's going above the roof plane, or even the fact that it's just on the wall going up at all?
Let's pose that question to both Commissioner Wu and Blackwell then. If this was to go up and be an element that ended at the eave and did not penetrate the roof or go beyond above, would that allay your concerns?
No,
Well, it just
because
doesn't look right, because if it's a chimney, it needs to be taller than a roof, like 3 feet or 2 feet above whatever roof portion within 10 feet. There's a code requirement about that. You need to get all through and above the roof. If it's not a chimney, then what is the point to go to that height? You don't need a stack at all. It just doesn't look genuine. And
well,
for the sake of adding
That
some
very
beauty
reason was
back,
why I softened up and was comfortable with the chimney, because it did look right.
well,
Chris,
it's a
is it
form and
possible
function.
that the chimney to be sited along the side wall? The side property line.
Oh, you mean flip it over? Oh, you mean put it out towards the street?
No, yeah, toward the street, so to speak. So you have a courtyard of 3 sides, building along 3 sides, and you put a standalone chimney on the 4th side. Is there anything prevented from happening?
No, that might look a little
Minimum
strange.
setback?
It might look a little stranger than what the chimney adjacent to the building is, because it to me looks like it could even be an interior fireplace chimney as well as an exterior fireplace chimney.
Okay, well, now functional, I've seen a chimney, a low profile chimney about 5 feet, 6 feet tall, and that's all you need. Right, so.
But he wants this for a TV also. So it's going to be a 3-foot height firebox plus a couple of feet separation between the firebox and the TV, a 30-inch TV, and then something to cover the top of the TV.
Right, then, but still, a single story height would suffice, I guess.
Well, that's what I was asking earlier, Art, about the location of it. Again, this is a proposal the applicant is making. These are elements the applicant wants to incorporate in their living space. We're not trying to prohibit that. Again, it's a nice thing to have a fire element in an outdoor space. If you want to hang a TV on it, that's, hey, no problem. That's their choice. It's all about protecting the architecture, the form, and the function. So if we don't need a chimney element that high, then why do it? Why detract from the architecture? If there's no other place to put it, that is the location needs to happen, because other areas of that courtyard are going to be compromised by other elements the applicant wants there. Then we try to make sense of it. And how would it look if it's only 1 story high? If it's 10 feet up the wall and it terminates, would it be as visible? No, it wouldn't. But those portions that are visible, how's it going to look? It may look kind of strange. I don't know.
Oh, I thought, if it weren't historic and somebody wanted to put a chimney there, I say it looks fine. It's a 2-story house, there's a chimney, and it's a chimney.
Oh yeah, it totally look fine if it were not historical house, and the design
But it's
is
not
good.
on the historical part of the house. This is on a 1980 remodel that this is going on, and I'm struggling with, if I was a person who didn't know the house and saw it, I would think it looks appropriate. I don't want to bastardize it just because it's on an addition that happens to be sitting on top of a historic structure.
Yeah, that's a valid point. Okay, then let's talk about the scale of it.
Okay, that's great. That's good.
How do you feel, Bart, about the scale? Should it extend above the roof line? Do you think the scale is okay? That the lines, do you think those are appropriate? Do you think would you be more comfortable if it matched the lines of the existing chimney, or is it okay to be different?
Well, there is width-wise, he's done a good job pulling it away from the corner of the house.
Yeah.
So it looks like 5-6 feet from the corner of the house. The scale of the chimney is about the same width as the one in the center of the roof. The height above the roof, a typical fireplace would be 2 feet and 10 feet. In other words, it'd be up 2 feet at a point 10 feet away. He's actually held it down from that because it's going to be it only has to be, correct me if I'm wrong, Ian, 12, 18 inches for a type B vent?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Depends. The newer fireplaces have, depending on what it is, they've got a little bit more elaborate caps these days, but that's more for a linear fireplace. But yeah, it's about 12, 18 inches above for a B vent.
So he's actually held it down below what a wood fireplace would require. And I kind of feel a softening of the fact that he's gone from the full fireplace width down to a little less than half, it looks like, for the chimney. That's kind of a traditional way of doing it. So I'm not sure with the landscaping they're doing and all, and furnishing, we're going to see that firebox section of the chimney. So it's just, I'm guessing 30 inches, 24 inches wide, and that we'll see going up. He could terrace it back a little bit so it only protruded from the wall a foot or two, but well, it's only 2 feet now probably. But everybody's got a valid, there's no right or wrong. It's just, we've got different ways of approaching this.
Well, why don't we ask the applicant? Why don't we ask the applicant about a location other than where it's at, if that's going to kind of intrude upon their plans for their outdoor space? Is this the only location that works?
That could be to both Ian and the applicant. Absolutely.
So perhaps this is the only location.
I can comment. There's one of the things that we're doing. You'll notice, if you notice on the landscape plan, there's a nice tree right there in the center of the courtyard. The next door neighbor has a deck looking
Yeah.
to this.
Yes, you do.
Really need a tree, something to block. I mean, they're looking straight down into their courtyard.
Okay, so this could be an impact, a visual impact to the neighbor on that side, putting a structural element right there.
My guess is a second story bedroom. It's that view.
Next door, I
Yeah.
believe, Rick, it's a deck, I think. Is that Rick?
Yeah, it's a wooden deck above her garage. I've never been in her house, but I assume there's maybe a master bedroom that walks out onto that deck above her garage. But that was the purpose of that olive tree there in the courtyard, was to give us some privacy from her on the deck. Honestly, the deck doesn't come out too far. I don't think she'd see the fireplace. I think she just would see into the courtyard and more towards the corner, which would be the northwest corner of the courtyard.
Okay. Okay. You comfortable with and obviously the trees are not going to be cantilevering over the other properties, so.
Correct.
Okay, has everybody still on their same position on that, the chimney, or?
Well, the chimney can come up vertically and they taper back and merge into the existing wall. We're talking about it without seeing any specific design. So I would say just come back with a design and we'll look at it.
Well, I want to give them I mean, we're down to just a couple little small items, and I hate to see it, the project be delayed by 3 weeks or so. If we can get it down to just a couple of items. Because I have faith in Chris, because Chris is been very conscientious on this project, and I think if we can give him and the applicant good, clear direction, we can keep this project moving.
Okay, well, on the chimney, I'm on the same page with Chris. So if we agree that let the Chris will handle that, then I'm okay with moving forward.
Okay, how about you, Commissioner Blackwell? Did we lose Chris, Commissioner Blackwell?
No, I'm here. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I had you on mute. Yeah, I apologize. So my position on that, I heard you, and my position is that based on what the applicant mentioned about the location and the thoughtfulness of that structural element with respect to the adjacent property owner, and adding though I think of something else for privacy screening than an olive tree, but anyway, that's okay. I can appreciate that. Yeah, I can appreciate that, and it justifies the location. I would just like to see it minimized to the greatest extent possible and integrated into the building. As long as it's got a function, the form should be right. I think it's still a little large, but I'm not deeply troubled by it. If I was looking at a smaller scale chimney, I'd probably feel a lot more comfortable knowing that that's happening. But again, this is one of those design details you just kind of have to wait to see. It may end up being really nice. I'm kind of, yeah.
Ian, do you think you can work with Chris to address those comments?
Yes, I mean, assuming what I'm hearing is to reduce the scale, but still something that works and functions, and the form.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Is still of a chimney that, I mean, that was my thought, was trying to have a chimney that doesn't go all the way up. It just is not right. So even whether it's necessary for today's building codes or not, everybody knows that a chimney shouldn't stop in the middle of the wall. So that's
right.
But certainly willing to reduce the scale.
Okay, very good.
And bring it less impact.
Okay, and are you comfortable with working with Chris to open up the balcony at the arch stairway?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go to the last item that I think we have is the wall between the garage and the house.
Bart, before you go deeply into that one, I just had
Yeah,
one little piece. I'm so sorry. I made this note and I overlooked it.
Easy to do.
Question, especially with my writing. I am looking at the chimney topper and I can appreciate the use of real materials like copper. I think that's fantastic. If that's truly what's going to happen, we're seeing a lot of the faux application on aluminum, the faux finishing, and it doesn't always translate the same way. So with a place like this, the age and the importance of it, I can appreciate the use of these sorts of materials. But again, back to the continuity piece, is anything proposed on the existing chimney top while we're already up there and we're making these improvements to that part of the structure, are we doing anything else on the existing chimney? Is that going to be replaced as well? Something similar?
The shroud?
Yes.
Ian?
We would be happy to. Yes, we'd be happy to replace and tie those two together.
That would be a nice consistent approach. Good.
Yeah. Yeah, and you could even, I know, Bart, maybe weigh in on this, but it doesn't have to be exactly the same. So you can have a little bit of variation in the design, a little bit of whimsy, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if it has to be exactly the same, but the materials, that copper, that
We can say this needs to be the same character.
Yeah,
which means it doesn't have to be exactly the same. And
there you go.
Yes, that sounds good.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to put that out there.
Let's get everything addressed.
I think, well, yeah, my perspective is working with Ian would be to diminish the scale and try to make the chimneys look a little bit closer to each other so that they're a little bit more consistent. And I mean massing as well, the massing and.
Okay,
Yeah.
then we've got the stairs and the chimney discussed. Let's go to the wall. I appreciate very much the applicant wanting to use an iconic style opening there, and I totally get it. But I just don't think it's in the vernacular that this particular house historically was built in. So I would be much more comfortable with, and it can be ornate. It doesn't have to be plain, but a decent heavy door with some decent hardware on it would be, I think, a very appropriate solution for that opening. Commissioner Wu and Blackwell, let's have your comments on that, and we may be able to wrap this up.
Well, I was liking that detail, and I like the way you put that. It's important. It's an important note to make. But I'm not totally opposed with kind of a nod to it, like an essence of that detail. Okay. And that can be done, maybe with, having a nice stucco that matches the rest of the, the structures on the property, with the recess kind of like in that shape with a nice wooden door, instead of, being so literal about it, just tone it way down, maybe even a tile detail, something. But right now it is exactly that. It's kind of almost a cut and paste. And for those of us that live here and are familiar with the Casa Romanica, that's the first thing we're going to think of. I would automatically walk towards that door thinking that's the way in. To Chris's point, and I think it's confusing a little bit, even though the applicant has made it clear that the intent is not to make that the primary entrance. Those that really appreciate, which clearly the applicant does, and wants to nod to that design detail, it's still, that's the main entrance to the Casa Romanica, and that's just the way it is. And but again, not opposed to some level of that detail, but just toned way down, I think could work if they really wanted to have it in their heart and needed it. I think that would be a nice happy medium.
Okay, Commissioner Wu, your comment on that.
Yeah, just to echo Commissioner Blackwell's comments. Feel free to create your genuine design and just don't copy and paste.
Okay, I think that's a good direction to Ian and Chris. The only one thing I never asked anyone on was that tall vertical, and I'm trying to find the picture of it. It almost looks like bottle glass window.
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead. Jump in.
Yeah, I don't know if we're still talking about the wall. I still have some questions about it.
Okay, please ask them.
Okay. So first, what I had in mind for this wall, first keep in mind that it's not an original wall. So likely there was a privacy wall here at some point, and it was about 6 feet tall, probably, and it had a door here. Not a trellis, not the addition of roof tile. So something that we haven't talked about is simplifying this to a wall, not having roof members there. And then as for the door, what staff would support is like a deep recess door, if they want, with like an arch shape and decorative hardware on it. I think that would work. And if they want to add a little bit more accent, they could put some accent tiles or something like that. Inset.
On that one, let's get the applicant's thought on that wall as far as height and cap, and the fact there's a trellis or an arbor to get some plants growing on.
Well, I like the existing trellis and some of the plants that have been there for many years. They're quite beautiful, but honestly, we've been in this process now over a year. COVID obviously aggravated it. And so I've got to keep my wife happy, and I've been begging the city to let me get started on the swimming pool in the backyard and other things. And the landscape issues have really delayed a lot of this project. So I'll concede the keyhole. I'm over it. I've got to get, I had to keep my wife happy, and I've got to get going on this project. So
And we're here to help you get this project going.
yeah, and I appreciate you actually were reading my mind. So I've moved on from the keyhole, and Carl Lindbaum can understand that I tried, yeah, I'm over it now. I just want to get moving forward, but I'd like to keep some of the trellis and the I don't need the tiles that Ian proposed, but basically let's just get, like you said, a beautiful wooden door entry into that backyard pool area, and let's get started.
And one thing, as far as the Secretary of Interior standards and all on historic buildings, this is a wall that can be removed, changed, altered without affecting the historic building itself. So I think we are probably in a position to let Ian and the applicant and the planning department finalize the wall. I don't see that as being a deal breaker.
Great.
Okay.
Now let me get final concurrence from Commissioner Blackwell and Commissioner Wu that they're comfortable with this approach. Well,
I can tell you that I feel the applicant's statement there, and when you have a property, it's yours, and you want to make it, turn it into your dream, that's it's a big deal. And again, I think the element could still happen with that keyhole entrance, just to tone it down, to minimize it and make it clear that that's not a primary entrance. It's just toned down. It's a secondary. It could still happen. I would hate to see it go away altogether if that's what they want to do. But I appreciate their willingness to cooperate, but I'm struggling with taking it away from them. That piece of it, because I think it would be interesting.
I don't think we're necessarily taking it away from them. If Ian and the applicant and Chris can come up with a solution, I've kind of come to the conclusion that that wall is subordinate to the building, and that's the way I think it should be designed.
Okay, I agree.
And if they can come up with a detail that is that direction and still incorporates the keyhole, that's fine. So I'm comfortable leaving it up to them. Commissioner Wu.
Well, I think today's meeting is productive. We had some compromise and we addressed some concerns. As my understanding, the massing of the chimney will be reduced, and the local width between the chimney and the existing vent over the roof will be more similar. The top of the staircase landing will be lightened up, and the originally proposed that the keyhole opening will be downplayed. So all of them they're good. I think I like this approach, and I would like this project to move forward.
Good. Well, I'm glad we worked on it as long as we did here and discussed it, because I think we've got a good direction for the applicant, and he can move on and get this project processed. And Chris, thank you for your hard work and comments on it. And Ian, as always, you've done a good job. So congratulations on moving forward. The last hurdles aren't cleared yet, but you're on your way.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you,
Okay.
Chris.
Our next project to look at is item 2B. I have no idea if my camera's on or not here. How's my, oh, I'm down to 21%. So let's make this quick.
We
Okay.
can see you, Bart.
Is Master Project 21002 Summer Project Summer. And Stephanie Rojas is our planner on this project. So Stephanie, you're up.
Yes, let me just get the PowerPoint presentation up. Okay, can everybody see my presentation okay and not my notes?
It looks good to me.
Yeah, it's all there.
Okay.
Yes, I can see it.
It's about 20 acres in size. The properties are surrounded by light industrial, warehouse, office, and limited conditionally permitted uses in the surrounding business park. And there are residential neighborhoods located to the south, over 400 feet away. The Rancho San Clemente Public Trail runs along a portion of the southern property boundary. The trail is located on private property owned by the business association, but it is maintained by the city. Overall, the site is largely not visible to the public due to the hilly topography and the large landscape buffers on all sides of the property. Here is the proposed site layout. As you can see, the building is centrally located within the site and set back a great distance from the streets. The purpose of this DRSC review is to provide the applicant with preliminary comments early in the application process. Staff has also provided the applicant with comments from all city departments, but they are also seeking input from the subcommittee so that they can design or so that any design comments that is being provided today can be incorporated into their revised submittal package. So that happens to, oops, sorry about that. Let me just, Next slide. The project consists of a single-story concrete tilt-up building. The building has several accent colors in blue and gray, and a painted metal canopy is proposed over the truck loading dock. The proposed building height is 45 feet tall, measured to the top of the parapet. The applicant is requesting an administrative adjustment to allow the building to exceed the height limit of the zone. So in general, staff does rely on the city design guidelines and other regulatory documents as our basis for design review. However, when those documents provide very little guidance, there is a limitation on what the city can request with regard to aesthetics and design. So that happens to be the case with this project. There is very little guidance in our city design guidelines with regard to industrial developments. And generally speaking, industrial buildings do have a very minimalist design. So the overall approach that staff has taken in reviewing this project for design and architecture is really taking a look at the potential impacts to the public and surrounding uses. So particular attention was given to the public views from the trail and potential impacts to nearby residential neighborhoods. Okay, next slide. So to help the city fully assess the aesthetics of this project, staff is recommending the applicant provide renderings, a photometric study with more information on the lighting details, and a separate master sign program. So we are seeking the subcommittee's concurrence with these recommendations. And as a reminder, the purpose of this initial DRSE review is to allow the subcommittee to broadly comment on the project. And if there are any specific exhibits or materials that the subcommittee would like to see, we are seeking that input today. So I will now turn it over to the applicant, Derek Meddings of Greenlaw Partners. He will briefly introduce the applicant team involved in this project.
Hi, thanks, Stephanie, for that introduction and overview of the project. I'm sitting here as well with Rob Mitchell in our office at Greenlaw Partners. Really appreciate you guys taking a look at this project, and we look forward to your questions and feedback and comments regarding this proposed project. And we do have our entire development team on the call as well at Ware Malcolm, including our civil engineer and architect that can answer some specific questions regarding design that you guys might have. And so with that, I think we'd like to open it up for questions and comments from the committee.
Very good. Thank you very much. Are you done with your presentation, Stephanie?
Yes, that does conclude staff's presentation. And when you are ready for public comments, we did receive a number of public comments that requested to be read into the record.
Let's read those into the record right now to get them over with, because I think since this is a preliminary review, we may want to do it in a bit of a informal discussion process, so we can rather than just speaking to each other, we can talk to people.
Of course, of course. So I'm just making sure that I didn't miss anything else. Okay, so we received a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We received a total of 8 public comment letters, and 7 of those requested to be read into the record. So I'll start with the first one. Hello, this is in regards to this application. Is there any concern around the infrastructure and roads and how this will impact congestion in the city? There are 2 roads that lead to this plot of land, both of which are single lane roads and are not heavily trafficked, but with 300 plus vehicles going in and out of this location daily could create a bottleneck. How are you going to prevent traffic backup from the 5 off and on ramps all the way to the facility? Next comments. Please do not sell out to Amazon. The Rancho San Clemente area is not purely a business area. It is right next to many homes, and I do not want a giant commercial warehouse here. This is a valuable open space. Please don't sell our beautiful area to corporate interests. Please do not allow this to happen. Thank you. Okay, next comment is from Dawn. The current design review and other documents do not seem to include a traffic impact study. This seems to be the most important document for this project, as I believe the traffic impact on the local community by this project will create a very negative situation. Please ask the applicant and city staff where the traffic impact will be and when the report will be due. The next comment is from Ed. Please do not allow this behemoth to gain a foothold and begin to destroy the family business and small town values and history of our beautiful San Clemente. Thank you. Okay, next comment. Remember to give the Planning Commission, the city, and the business park files going back to how the owner of the large land does not want to pay dues to Rancho San Clemente Business Park and the city. Okay, next comment was actually just some questions. Their comment letter reads, which street is proposed for the entrance? Both streets enter a Manassar on a curve, which are blind to drivers on a Manassar. Will businesses on Via Callejon lose their view to the west? And the last comment is from Timothy Shoemaker. I totally understand that the landowner should be able to build a business on this property, but I am concerned that the type of business where there will be much truck traffic coming and going 24 hours per day could cause truck noise to the homes that are less than a football field and a half away. There is a hill for the trucks to climb, and this would be audible to the homes. Also concerned there will be light pollution. That concludes the public comments received that wanted to be read into the record.
Okay, very good. And I think, you know, the traffic is something that's going to have to be addressed. It's off the site. So it's not really a design review issue, but the site plan is, so we really do need to know the traffic flows, et cetera, on this. And as far as the comment that there are no guidelines really for what these look like, the Rancho San Clemente specific plan does have some guidelines for variation in building footprint and so forth in a couple of places within the specific plan. So I think that needs to be referenced and made, make sure that the applicant is aware of those requirements. And there's also a section on building mass and form. So those will have to be discussed and incorporated into the design. Let's see, how do we want to approach this? Let's look for general comments first from Commissioner Wu and Blackwell and myself, and then we can expand from there. Let's start with Commissioner Wu this time.
Thank you, Chair Crandall. Thank you for your preface. Yeah, there are other issues such as you know, some of the environmental issues like traffic or noise, or I also would like to see things about sustainability stuff. Those belong to Planning Commission, so we're going to focus on the design. First of all, Stephanie, can you educate us about what you mentioned, administrative adjustment process? What does that mean, and how is it done?
I'm glad that you asked that question because it is a little known provision within the Rancho San Clemente specific plan. And to be quite honest, I could not find any other projects that have elected to use that provision. So in terms of guidance of what specific criteria we're taking a look at in order to evaluate that request, you know, it's kind of really up to the hearing body to take a look at that and look at it as a whole. And really the only guidance that's given by the specific plan is considering projects that have a unique need to really encourage some kind of innovation. If there's very unique needs of that particular operator, it can allow for minor exceptions to our standards to allow for some flexibility. And the Rancho San Clemente specific plan does also speak to looking at it for general consistency with the zoning ordinance. So unfortunately, I don't have a great answer for you because it doesn't look like it's really been used, but it is part of the code and it is something that is there. So that is something that we'll be taking a look at. We have asked the applicant to provide additional justification for that and to look at and explore options to be able to lower that height. But again, overall, that's something that's going to be reviewed by the Planning Commission once we come to that point.
Okay, but it's administrative adjustment, right? So
Yeah,
that
you know,
means that no matter what the planning commission decides, if the city manager's office decides that there's some overriding consideration, he doesn't have to follow the planning commission's recommendation. Is that right?
You know, Commissioner Wu, let me clarify that. So even though it does say administrative adjustment, you think that by the specific plan that it's implied that it can be done on a staff level, but this is certainly something that we want to be reviewed concurrently with the rest of the applications and be presented to the Planning Commission in addition to their architectural permit and their site plan permit. So the short answer to that is that it's not going to be reviewed on a staff level. It'll be part of that overall request and entitlement package.
Okay, thank you. Back to Barks.
Yeah.
What was the direction?
Well, what I'd really like to do is maybe have for a second while I get an extension cord here to get some power to the phone. Let's have the applicant give us a synopsis, a little quick thing on how this building operates and what are its hours, et cetera. So we really know how to look at the building as a solution to their need. Can we get the project team to say, you know,
Yeah.
we've got big semis that show up, what time of day is it during, and these are things we don't really get into, but ease our mind by saying it's not going to impact the safe routes to schools and high school parking, et cetera.
Yeah, not a problem. And we provided an operational narrative to Stephanie as well that describes the project. Niraj or Robbie, do you guys feel comfortable in terms of just describing the operation here? I don't know if we have them on or not, but I
no,
can
I'm
give
here.
you.
Sorry,
Okay.
I was on mute.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't mind running through that. I think Tam from my office is also prepared to speak to that. If she's on, I'll
Yeah,
kind of
I
hand it to
am.
her.
Sure.
Cool.
Good evening, you guys. My name is Tam. I can run through a quick operation overview of how this works. The packages are transported from the delivery station via trucks, the big 18-wheelers from neighborhood fulfillment and sortation centers that are sorted and picked and loaded into the truck and deliveries. It operates 24/7, but to support delivery packages, the customer locations between 11 a.m. and 9 p.m. at the tenant's proposed site. We're anticipating 11 line hauls truck delivering packages to the station each day, primarily between the hours of 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. So it shouldn't impact much of the traffic during the day. It'll be safe route for the kids' school. It won't affect any of that. Does that answer the questions?
You did, and also all the van storage you show on the site.
Yeah.
Are those parked there, or where do those drivers come from and where do they park?
Yeah, so the associate employees who drive the vans will park on site as well.
Because in the parking tabulation, I didn't see, you know, you just quoted parking for the building, which is all our code actually discusses. But there's going to be additional demand for parking for the van drivers, correct?
The amount of parking provided takes into consideration the required parking stalls for van drivers and associates working inside the building as well.
Okay, Commissioner Wu and Blackwell, would somebody like to jump in with any questions?
Well, Bob, you asked the question how this facility is operated, and I think the applicant answered some of the questions, but I still don't have a clear picture of how this thing, you know, it's like a machine moving, right? So what's the input? You know, where do people come from? Where do they go? how do they, how this facility is running 24. Traffic come in and out, goods come in, trash goes out, people have shifts. So how many people are there? The whole operation.
It's a complicated project, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah,
I think we can provide a little bit of clarity as well on top of what Tam said at where Malcolm. And generally, this is the tail end of the delivery process for packages to local constituents. And so there is a small number of line haul trucks that come in typically after 10 p.m. Around that time. But again, a small number. And before I move on, I think I just would want to make clear that all of this will be included in the traffic report and the technical studies provided to the planning staff as well. That's currently under review, which we're working through comments on. And so we'll continue to work with planning staff on that to make sure every question is answered. But just to follow up, a small number of line haul trucks come in after traffic hours around 10 p.m. To deliver the product to the building. And then starting in the morning, but after peak traffic hours, starting around 10 a.m., packages are loaded up into the fleet vans and delivered in phases out of the property every 30 minutes, roughly, I believe. And that happens starting after 10 p.m. to avoid peak traffic, and then continues throughout the day. And then those vans come back after traffic hours at night as well, around 7 p.m., I believe. So all of this is in the operational narrative as well, which I think can speak a lot to the actual operation of the project. But I think that hopefully gives you a little clarity on what is going on here at the property. But as Commissioner Crandall did say, it is a complex project that'll likely take a little bit deeper dive to understand, the operation of the facility.
And I always
Thank
know
you very
operations
much.
involved also.
Yeah, that's enough for me. And I think Commissioner Blackwell may have some question. Otherwise, let's move on to the design review portion.
Okay, I agree that that's probably the way to do it. I'll make a quick comment. I mean, the solution right now is circulation and all we can't really address because we don't know what direction the trucks are coming from, et cetera. But we've got a rectangular building, all one height around the perimeter of it. And my comment would be, I don't think that meets the specific plan documents on variation in heights. And I'm wondering why you are trying to get 45 feet height around the perimeter of the building, or could the perimeter be a little lower and the center be a little higher, or is there any room for movement on that? That was to address to the where Malcolm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think we
Niraj.
can. Yeah, no, sorry, I
Okay.
was on mute again. We can definitely do that. I think there's a possibility for some undulation on the panels that we have, and I think we're exploring some options of reducing that height a little bit more to kind of just help with the overall size of this building.
Okay, and I'm going to make a bold guess here that we've been pushing for dark skies lighting
Okay.
for a number of years, and that may be in place depending on how long this takes to process. With these canopies and 24/7, is that going to be insurmountable?
I think with the way that this facility will work,
Niraj, do you mind if I kind of just chime in
Yeah.
on that? Yeah, so when it comes to the dark skies policy, that is definitely something that we are concerned about. But with new builds, there is a lot of ability in the types of light fixtures, both around the building for security as well as within the parking lot, to really like focus and shield the lighting so that it directs, it's contained within the site itself. I know that there sometimes is this perception, especially with like sports field lighting, that the light kind of just shines everywhere and bounces around the sky and really is not dark skies compatible. But there definitely is a lot of advancements within lighting fixtures to be able to focus the lighting onto the site. So that is something that we have discussed with the applicant, and we are requesting those additional details to be provided to us with the next resubmittal package.
Yes, because I anticipate, and it was kind of a leading question, and why I did it was to say it really needs to be designed into the project rather than just be fixtures only.
Sure. That's a good point. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think we're considering all of that as part of this design. We don't want to, do anything that's obviously going to cause more light pollution in these areas, and we already know most of these industrial parks tend to have that. So we'll do what we can to help you guys on that front and provide that as well. And I think part of your question also is, because this is like a phased facility, there may be a way to also apply that logic to when the lights are on and off, and we can try to kind of use that as well, right? And help with that facility.
Yeah, there's a whole myriad of ways you can approach the problem. Okay, Commissioner Wu, I kind of stepped in front of you. You were talking, and I'll give the floor back to you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I think that, it's a nice project. It utilizes the two vacant lots that's being underutilized for decades. And it's a huge economic development project, creates a job. But let me focus on the design review issue. I think the biggest issue at this moment for me is that the front elevation with the canopy has some undulation or articulation. But because of the location of this project, it's sitting on the highest point of the business park, it's visible by much of the Talaga and along with the Pacifica neighborhood across Pico. I guess 2/3 of Talaga people can see it. The building height, it asks for 45 feet. This is, let's say this is Amazon facility. It doesn't have to be Amazon, it's distribution center, right? At this scale, those Amazon facilities, they can be million square feet. This is only 1/10 of it. They want higher clearance inside the building, but 45 seem to be pretty high. With this square footage, I think normally, I don't have a lot of knowledge on that, so I just did some quick research. I think 32 feet is a norm. If the operator or applicant wants more capacity, the site is big enough, you can increase the footprint, but still stay within the 35 building height, which will give you about 32 feet clearance inside the building. The building footprint is as big as some of the biggest buildings in town: Lowe's, Walmart, Sprouts. Just a few examples. Well, and a Target, and that's probably about it. It's visible from La Plata. It's visible from Avenida Talaga. It's visible from the golf course of Talaga. It's visible from Veracruz. It can be seen by a lot of people on their daily life. And the trail around the Rancho San Clemente is identified as a significant ridgeline. And there's a ridgeline protection provision policies in general plan. From certain view angle, this building is going to break that ridge line. So I'd like to see more analysis, like a view shed and a field simulation. It doesn't have to be rendered. Just to create a 3D model, import into Google Earth, show it to people, show it to us that what does it look like from different locations. I have a few specific locations I can give later on. But that's the biggest concern. Also, the front, I think I already said, the front is actually, well, the back side is actually what people see from the city. You probably need a lot of high, tall trees, which you propose, such as eucalyptus and some pine trees, to soften the look of this building massing. But I think you may need a little more. Still, the building would be too high because if the site is so tall, then the building is so tall. That's my number one comment on the proposal at this moment. I think you may be able to shift the building footprint on the site to find the best location to reduce the encroachment into the ridgeline or reduce the local building massing, but you still may need to reduce the building height. If is a parapet needed, can you just do a sloped roof? Anything you can do to reduce the building height and add a little building articulation will help. That's my comment so far.
Okay, Commissioner Blackwell?
Yes, clearly we're at the early stages, and I do appreciate the applicants when the applicants come in early and have such advanced drawings, exhibits for us to review. I think it's great. To Commissioner Wu's point, I think that the view shed is going to be important from sensitive uses, especially the adjacent, what I would consider adjacent anyway, residential uses to the southeast and lower in elevation down in Talega, Pacifica. There could be some visibility, but one of the things that I thought about when we were chatting about the height was that, and I did not receive a topo on this property. Is there one available, Stephanie?
I'll need to defer to the applicant, Niraj. The packet that you have with you was just delivered to us the day that the binders were delivered, so I didn't have a great chance to look at everything before it was sent out.
Yes, we have a topo that we can provide.
Okay, and that's important because if you were to put a 10-foot anything, 45-foot fill in the blank on a hilltop above a ridge line,
right,
it's probably going to be visible from somewhere.
Yeah, we actually have. I can provide you a section as well, just showing some of the views from that point. We can get that to you if you'd like that sooner than later to kind of have a more open dialogue about that.
Okay. And so that we're all thinking about this the same way. There's an opportunity here. I did go up to the site twice. I took a look at it. It's relatively flat. I mean, there's some grading. I think some light grading will happen there. But if you consider it a volcano effect, if you will, a berm, it's a classic design approach that we've seen all over Irvine with parking lots. You can drive through parts of Irvine and you see a repetitive theme where there's a knoll, there's a raised berm with plant material buffer, and you don't even see the cars. What you see is the buildings that that are there, and the architecture, but you don't see as many cars, and there was intent there. And I was thinking about that with this, but this obviously on a much larger scale. If the site is going to be visible and that height is necessary, but glad to hear the applicant will look into possibly lowering the height. But it's a functionality piece. They're going to ask for what they need to be a successful use there. If it's 45 feet, then it's 45 feet. Would love to see it lower, if possible. And in addition to, maybe looking at, dropping the pad down a bit or creating berms. There are landscape materials here. They're going to, over time, prove to be effective. The podocarpus and, the pine species that is planted, there's a lot of it. As you can see, there was intention there for screening, which will be very effective. I don't know that the size of the boxes that are proposed on the periphery are going to be sufficient, at least in the near term. When I say that, I say, it'll probably take 10 years before we see some significant growth up there to really make a difference visually. So the photo simulations, I think, would be really important. And I'm assuming they're going to be very accurate. So I think that's going to tell us a lot. This is an industrial area. So we start, considering land use, which is not within our purview really. But as Commissioner Crandall had mentioned, it kind of is, because, how this property is going to be used is not consistent with the majority of the other uses up there. In other words, this is a 24/7 operation. Even if there's only 11 line haul trucks going in from 10 to 8, if it's 10, if it's 1 even, there's activity up there that is, well, inconsistent with what we see now. This area pretty much goes to sleep after 5. So if you take a drive up there and invite anybody on this call to do so, at night, it's pretty quiet up there. So, regardless of who the operator is going to be, the character of this operation is going to be different. So we should address the design so we can address, any impact from a land use perspective. The land will be used differently. The hours of operation are going to be a little different than what we're used to. And there's going to be frequent trips. So how do we mitigate that in design? Well, I don't know that we've done that, or we have enough information here to know that we've done that. Is there going to be adequate screening? Is the pad low enough? Is the building color the best? There's a gray and blue color scheme here. Is that the best for this particular property? It's so high up on the hill. Maybe a more muted tone, maybe something more earth tone or something that would blend into the landscaping would help with the visibility if we determine after reviewing the photo simulations that there is a visual impact from various perspectives, but we don't know yet. But when we have that information, then we could probably add some new conditions or make special requests on the design. It would be an informed decision really, but we can't right now. I think it's a good use of land, but again, that's not within our purview right now. I think there's a huge attempt here to bring in a good project. There's lots of screening, great plant materials, very hardy, sustainable, and predictable. This is not anything special, but it's going to be effective up there. I would like to see photo simulations, just like Commissioner Wu said, a view shed analysis because of the ridgeline issues. The topo information is going to be important, and if the applicant's willing to lower the topography, if that 45 feet is necessary to do what they need to do, then we can maybe mitigate the visibility by lowering that pad. It's a great opportunity to do that because you're going to have earth movers up there anyway, and you can create a knoll, a buffer, like I had referenced is done in Irvine with parking lots frequently. It could be a great way to mitigate any potential visual impacts, both visually and for sound. And the lighting study is going to be important as well. We don't have any guidelines that we've adopted yet, but it's still a valid discussion to have. And I think it's a fair request to ask that we, reduce that visibility to the greatest extent we can, especially considering the hours of operation. And that's it.
Well, all good comments, Michael. Yeah, and as the architects on this, do consider things like we've got this big, huge canopy roof over the vans, open on 3 sides. If one of the the long side were at least screened or had a wall, that would certainly mitigate the impact on the trails that are up above on the higher part of the mountain looking down on this site. So you're just not seeing a mass of vans parked down there, ready to attack the highways. We'd love to see the building itself address some of these screening issues, if you get the opportunity to do that. But I think you've got a good start here. I think it's going to evolve for a while. And we're here to work with the applicant to solve any architectural issues. And at Planning Commission level, the three members here are all planning commissioners. We'll also look forward to working with you to get the project through the approval process. Let's see, Stephanie, do you have any, I don't know what else we can comment on with
Yes, I was
presentation to us.
Yes, so it does seem like there is DRC consensus to request photo simulations, and Commissioner Wu mentioned also more of like a 3D modeling and viewshed analysis, but I was hoping that the commission could be specific as far as what vantage points they do want to see. Because, as you can imagine, once those renderings and those visual exhibits are requested, if we're missing any specific perspectives, then those requests need to be made again. And, we want to make sure that with the next design review meeting that we're being as efficient as possible. So if we can just, kind of list what specific views we want to see, I think that would really help the applicant put together that piece of the application package.
Okay, I appreciate the need for that, but I'm not in a position today to name all those sites because I did not drive around or explore all the vantage points that will be seen. So if Commissioner Blackwell or Wu have specific sites they're already aware of, I'd like to be able to survey the area a little more and make a list and get it to you after this meeting.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah,
Stephanie,
I think
Commissioner
if you
Wu.
can give us a week. Yeah. Go ahead, Commissioner Wu.
Stephanie, I do have specific locations that I'd like the applicant to create those simulation. Again, it doesn't have to be rendering. It just has to be photorealistic and accurate. As long as it's a relatively simple building massing. Create the building mass, 3D massing, import into Google Earth, and go to those specific points and take a screenshot, and that will do. So the first location would be Avenida Talega at Avenida Vista Hermosa.
Okay.
Toward the commercial center, and then you see that building on the top of the hill.
So you mean at Pico and Hermosa?
No, Avenida Talega at Vista Hermosa.
Okay. Right above the Rouse Center there.
That's the main
Plaga
entry.
Village.
Yeah, that's the main entry into the village center. And then go to.
I think what might be best, we'll go ahead and finish your choices, but if you could, and all three of us, take a map and put an X where we want those from, so there's no misinterpretations, but continue with your comments.
Yeah, I provide a map to the staff later. The second point location would be Avenida La Plata. Once you pass, driving southbound, once you pass the fire station.
Yeah.
So all these locations are on those major roads while people will be looking directly into this building. The third location would be scenic, the scenic vista at the end of the trail, looking back. That's a dead end for the trail where you have a node, then nowhere else to go. Then from there, looking back. The fourth location would be Veracruz at the entry of Pacifica. That little road is called Calle Paradiso. And the curve of the road happens just from there. You can see directly towards the building.
Okay. Well, Stephanie, those are really excellent locations. And I'm wondering if, if we all three go out and we ask for maybe, I don't know, a week to get this back to you and we average this out, I think it would be unreasonable to ask the applicant to, do too many those photo simulations. I mean, but the locations that Commissioner Wu mentioned are good, highly visible to that area. Just give us a week, and maybe if we all come up with areas and there's some overlap, maybe we ask for 3 or 4 photo simulations from those perspectives. That would be good. So do you think a week would be?
I agree with that approach, Michael.
Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely something we can certainly accommodate. I think that there were plenty of comments with regard to design and architecture to allow the applicant to continue working on addressing all of the city's comments. So, we will just hold off on making that request to the vendor for those renderings until we get that list.
Very good. Thank you, Stephanie.
And another item is please provide a section, and we want to see the justification for the 45 feet. For example, your report says the roof is slightly higher than 35, but the parapet is 45. How tall is the parapet? Why we need almost 10 feet behind the parapet? Maybe there's some machine you need to shield, but it could be moved to a different portion of that building at a lower elevation, etc. So we like to see what is the interior height clearance, what is the roof structure, what's behind the parapet. We basically like to see a justification for the 45 feet.
Certainly, that request was made to the applicant, and that was something we were intending on requiring in order to be scheduled for the next design review subcommittee meeting.
Okay.
You're on top of it, Stephanie. Okay, I think that's probably all the comments with what we've seen so far that we can give direction on, but do study the specific plan, because we will be making sure that the guidelines in this Rancho San Clemente specific plan are resolved. And as far as design guidelines and all, Stephanie's correct. They're minimal on this other than those guidelines. So, and I do have all the faith in Ware Malcolm. I've been aware of them for 40 years. They're not new to this business. So look forward to working with you.
Likewise.
Yes, indeed.
And thank you all for taking the extra time and staying on and giving us this feedback. It's very, very helpful.
Well, we appreciate that. We're here to work with you to make this thing work.
Yep.
Yeah, this is a great opportunity for the economy. So, we like to see it happening, but we want to make sure it's designed right for the people.
Of course.
Okay, so we will move this one along. Our next item this evening is new business. We have none, old business, none. Oral and written communication. Stephanie, is there anything we should be aware of?
There are no additional public comments.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Well, I'll make a motion that the Design Review Subcommittee adjourn to the next regular meeting of the Design Review Subcommittee that will be held on Wednesday, May 26, 2021 at 4 p.m. via teleconference.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion by Blackwell, second by Wu. Take a head count. Commissioner Wu?
Aye.
Commissioner Blackwell?
Aye.
And Commissioner Crandall is also an aye. So we are adjourned, and thank you, gentlemen, ladies, and Am I allowed to say that? I don't know.
Yes.
But good job, everyone.